Well, today I'm super excited for this with this season for Deal Flow. I wanted to, I was thinking through a lot of questions I have about real estate, being a real estate idiot, a real estate tard. Yeah. I just, I have, like I said, I have a background in business. Like you kind of know some of my story, but I think with wanting to extract as much value out of these conversations as we can for listeners. And I'm thinking about there's been so much content out there, I think, from people, again, that's not so granular. Mm-hmm. And I think part of our heart behind this really is let's get as much value as possible out there. But I've heard different people kind of create content like this about, starting from scratch. What would you do if you started from scratch? And I thought I'd be so curious. Okay, Cam, you're not in Hawaii. You're not in St. Louis. You're not in your market. And you start someplace in Nebraska. Yeah. And let's say there's a couple 100,000 people in the population. You've got no contacts. Mm-hmm. You've got no, no contacts, no deals that have happened, no deals happening, no project manager, no team, nothing. What would you do in a location if you were starting from scratch with the knowledge that you have? All you're equipped with is the knowledge that you have with how to build a business. What would you do in a place like that?
Yeah. So the very, very first thing that I would do is I would just learn the area.
Sure.
And so for a lot of people, that's just getting in your car and driving around, especially if I was brand new to the area. So some of these places people have lived in their entire life. They know the area really well. But if you were to pick me up and drop me into, let's say, Lincoln, Nebraska or whatever, I would get in my car and I would start driving, and I would learn certain areas, what areas I like, what areas I don't like. One of my sayings is I don't want to buy a house that I don't feel comfortable with my wife going to alone. So just what areas do I feel safe in? What areas do I not feel safe in? What areas are okay? They're not great. They're not bad. Just learning the areas. The other thing that I would do is I would be on Zillow all of the time. And I don't think Zillow is a great place to find deals, but it is just a great place to see what's getting listed, what it's getting listed at. One of my favorite things to see on Zillow is what's pending and how quick did it go pending. So just learning the real estate market of that area. And that doesn't take a lot of work. That's not a heavy lift. That's just staying informed on what's being listed. What do they look like? What's selling quick? Is it the houses in this zip code? Do they go really quick? Because in St. Louis, I know certain zip codes and I know the days on market in those zip codes and what areas go quick, what areas don't go quick. Also what price range goes quick. So in St. Louis, any house that's listed between $200,000 and $400,000, that's going to go really quick. Right. You start getting up into, for a lot of areas, $500,000 isn't a high price point, but in St. Louis, that's a relatively high price point. You start getting up into those prices, and it might sit on the market for a little bit. We sold our personal house, we were moving here to Hawaii for a higher price point, and we were on the market for 60 days. But for the price point of the house that we were selling, that was average. So it wasn't there's not a lot of buyers that can afford that type of house in our area. And so it's out on the market for a little bit longer. So I would just start to learn the market. So that'd be step one, is just get comfortable with the market.
Would you make friends with real estate realtors or
for
get
sure.
to know just all of the lay of the land or?
Yeah, I think that's something that you can do along this. I think with reaching out to realtors, just humbly going to them and saying hey, I'm trying to learn the market. Can you just help me out? And sitting down with them and learning what are the price points that sell really quick? What are the price points that people here can afford to buy and want to buy? And so connecting with realtors, I think, is a great, for me, I would probably wait to really dive into connecting with people a little bit farther down the line, because right now you're just in an exploratory phase of hey, sure. I'm just learning the market. I'm learning, the good streets, the bad streets, the price of houses. And so a realtor is going to help with that for sure. So reaching out to realtors isn't a bad idea there.
I guess one of my thoughts would be, if I was, me being a complete noob, I feel like that would be a really good contact, because they'd see and walk so many houses. And I feel like, one of the ways that I've really learned Hawaii's real estate market is through meeting with realtors and just walking places, but I feel like you would probably want to like share your intention to not like burn any bridge with somebody, just letting them know like, hey, I want to learn the market. I know it doesn't sound sexy for your job, but my intent over the next couple years really is to buy a lot of homes, and my goal is to probably be in this space where I'm able to flip a lot I might do some wholesale stuff, but either way, I want to like turn a ton of properties. And to do that, I am going to have to like really learn a lay of the land, and I don't know if that makes sense for you now to invest some time with me to help me understand the market for maybe some future payouts for you. But that's my intention. Like, would that be helpful, or is that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that two of the reasons that like I wouldn't spend a ton of time connecting with realtors, I think it's 100% okay to connect with a handful of realtors, try and get the lay of the land, learn the market. But one, I don't think you're ready to buy yet. I don't like, if I was there, I would say I'm not ready to buy yet. And so reaching out to a realtor, I just don't want to give them any false hope, up front of like, hey, I'm literally just reaching out to you for advice, and you're not going to be buying me a house at this moment. Your intentions, like I do plan on buying houses in the future. But not right now. I'm just trying to learn. And so I would want to just be overly clear about that. And the second thing, and this is maybe, I love realtors, but at the same time, I feel like realtors don't know the market most of the time as good as investors do. And so I think I would start going to in meetups or connecting with investors, asking them what areas should I invest in, what areas should I not invest in.
Well, I guess friend lists and family lists and community lists. Cameron is in a town in Nebraska. Again, nobody likes him yet. All he's got is his charming, good looks and his wit about him. And you're in this place and you're like, cool, I'm driving, I'm getting the lay of the land. You're like, cool. If let's say your goal is like, I want to make my first $100,000 in the next like 2 to 3 months here. Is that even possible in a brand new market that you are just learning? And
that's definitely possible.
Like for you,
you would have to wholesale to do that. And I think more realistically,
why would you have to wholesale?
Because you're not going to turn a flip that quick.
Oh, because you don't have like contacts yet, or what would be like the constraint?
Well, I mean, like, let's say that I was dropped into a new market, and let's say I found a house the next day. And it was an incredible deal.
ARV looks good, like all this stuff.
Which isn't realistic because I haven't made connections or anything. But let's just say that the next day I found an incredible house. Typically, we're going to put that under contract, and then you're going to be, our quickest closing is like 3 or 4 days out, where we can put it under contract and we can close in 3 or 4 days. That's not normal. Typically, it's a 20 to 30 day close. So I put it under contract. I'm not even owning the house, getting the keys to the house for 30 days. So then I close on the house 30 days later. And a quick rehab would be a 30-day rehab. That is very rare. That's probably one of the just rules that we kind of say is like, for every $1,000 we're going to spend on a rehab, that typically is going to take us a day. So if it's a $100,000 rehab, it's probably going to be a 100-day rehab.
Oh, geez.
$100,000 rehab, especially in Lincoln. Like, here, a kitchen's $100,000, and you might be able to do that, pretty quickly. But in a place like Lincoln in the Midwest, something like that, $100,000 is a substantial rehab. That's going to get you a lot, but that could be a 100-day rehab. We're wrapping up a rehab right now that we're going to be at about 130,000, but it has only been a 65-day rehab.
Kind of makes me want to call up some construction guys from Lincoln, fly them out here.
Yeah. Oh, dude, there's people that do that here. There is people that do that.
Like, geez. It's like how much it's going to cost to just dig up a new pool.
Yeah. So there's definitely people that do that on island, that bring in, some workers from the mainland that can do it a little bit cheaper.
So smart.
But
yeah, so you can do that. It's like the constraints on like versus 4 or 5 days, or like it taking 4 or 5 days to close versus like 30 or 60. Is that the funding? Is that your contacts for capital? like Like, why would it, you're just like, you can't do that fast.
It's typically just like for me closing on that property.
Yeah.
Like if I found a house tomorrow.
Yeah, you're in that brand new market. You're like, yeah, you can't close
It's typically just title
days.
work. Yeah, they have to do title work on the house, and a lot of title companies are really busy. They're getting less busy, but they're still very busy. And a lot of title companies, they tell you like a 3-week minimum to turn around title.
So
now,
why can you do 4 or 5 days now?
I mean, if a title company rushes title and there is nothing on the title, like there's no liens, everything's clean.
Yeah.
Where you are the owner of the property, and you have 0 liens, 0 loans, it's paid off, like that you can do really quick. But if there's liens on the property, or let's say you own it, your parents passed away, you're the executor, but you have to get 5 other siblings to agree to it, to sign on it, or maybe you don't even know who is the rightful owner of the property. Like title work gets messy all of the time.
Yeah.
And so, like we just had a property that we were going to close on Friday that got delayed till yesterday. So it was only over the weekend, but the day of it was a rush title. I think we were trying to close this one in 10 days, and they couldn't get the loan payoff from the HOA. So they had an amount that they owed the HOA that hadn't been paid for a couple of years. The HOA took time to get it back to the title company. So the title company had to call us on Friday and delay closing because they didn't have that payoff amount. It was only, $500 or $600, but we had to push closing until Monday on that.
Oh,
and
funny.
so yeah, you only buy a house with a clean title. Yeah. And
so I'm getting granular here, but it helps me to understand, because I'm like, this ain't a business I know, but so you go in, you're like, okay, even if I got a deal, it would take some time.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what we're kind of getting back to is like, how much money could you, Cameron, really make in a market like that? If you were like, give me 3 months.
3 months. So let's go back to that initial property that we're talking about right now. So, let's say it takes a month.
Epic property. You're like, it's great.
Month to close on. Let's say 2 months for a rehab. And then you list the property, and then it's going to be, because now it's on the retail side of things. So if you're selling on the retail side, they're going to want inspections. They're going to have a financing contingency. It's probably going to be a 30-day close. So you're looking at 4 months from start to finish. That is if you find a property on the very first day. And on top of that, you're having to find contractors, subcontractors. And to do $100,000 flip, your very first flip, is probably just not realistic. So you would have to make $100,000 by flipping a property in 3 months is very unrealistic.
So you'd wholesale it?
Yeah, I would. Well, I mean, I'm in it for the long game, so I would flip it. But you to make $100,000 in 4 months flipping properties, realistically, I'm not saying, there's outliers all the time. You could find a property that needs 10 grand, you can sell it for $160,000 more than what you bought it for. You can be in and out. You can do it. I'm not saying that you can't do it.
Yeah.
But realistically, to taper expectations, you would probably have to do 3 flips at a time to make $100,000. If you're new to it, you're looking at $35,000 to $40,000 in net profit a flip. So $100,000 in 3 months by flipping properties is probably not unrealistic if everything goes exactly according to plan.
Right.
You might be able to, but I want to taper expectations with that. Probably not realistic. $100,000 in 3 months wholesaling properties. That is way more realistic.
You just have to have more volume of deals? Or?
Yeah, you'd have to have more volume for sure. So let's say that you'd have to 10 deals to hit $100,000. That might be.
That sounds ludicrous to a lot of people, though, to do 10 deals, like to find 10 homes.
Yeah, in
that
3 months.
You can have that kind of a spread with.
Yeah, well,
how do you
your
create
spread's
that
only
kind of
10.
flow?
Your spread is only like 10 grand. If you're doing 10 deals, making a net spread of $10,000.
That's fine. I feel like to find even 10 deals off market that you could do that with.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like you go into a market with people you don't know. You don't have contacts again. You don't have friends, family, referrals. Like what's your main plan of attack to have that many deals come across so that you can be like, let's say deal number 5, you're like, I could flip this for $200K. And now all of a sudden you have that gold thing, but you still have to have flow, right?
Yeah. And so couple things that I would say about all of this is, if you're dropping me into a market and you're saying, hey, Cameron, you have to make $100,000 in the next 3 months. it would be through wholesaling. If I don't have you have to make X, Y, or Z, you know, and I'm just trying to do what's best for my business, I'm tapering expectations, and I'm not expecting to make money for the first 4 months.
So you can make bigger money the last 8 months.
Yeah. I'm looking at it as a year long, a 12-month window. And in 12 months, I'm what I love about real estate is if you drop me into any market in the United States, in 12 months, I could net, you know, at least $300,000. And I think that's a very conservative estimate. Just because of what I know with networking with people, flipping properties, wholesaling properties. So I'm looking at it from a longer time frame, because you would have to, especially if you don't know anything. If you drop me now, I've got, you know, multiple years of knowledge built up and am naturally just good at connecting with people.
Yeah.
I could potentially do it, but even I would say for me, that would be a stretch. So for somebody just starting out, you know, $100,000 in 3 months, doable, probably not going to happen. And so, but what I would
let's go with the wholesale strategy.
Yeah.
Let's go with that first, because I'm really curious, like how you would do that so fast in 3 months versus like, I do want to hear about like, okay, 4 months, I wouldn't expect to make money. Here's what I would do. I'd love to hear some of those nuances, but like, let's go the wholesale route. Like, how would you do that?
Let's go. So wholesale route, you drop me in a market. I'm learning the market. So I'm driving around, finding good areas. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm getting online and I'm figuring out every investor meetup in the area.
Sure.
So every market, especially a market with, you know, multiple hundreds, thousands of people, is going to have multiple real estate investor meetups. And I'm going to make a spreadsheet of every single one that is happening, and I'm going to be at every single one of those. And so, you know, you might be going to 3 or 4 a week, and some of those, like I did this when I started. They're really corny, and there's 4 people at a bar talking about real estate, and you're like, I'm probably never going to come back to this. But some of them are amazing. You would never know that if you didn't go, though. Yeah. Some of them you go and you make a ton of really great connections. You vibe really well with a lot of people. And that is,
it's also not an expensive investment if you grab like a little PBR, you know, it's like a little Coors Light.
Exactly.
Right there, you know, it's $2 out and then you're good.
In and out, and you don't have to, there's no monetary investment into that. You're spending your time doing that. And for me, I think that is like my superpower in real estate is, I love those events. So for me, that's not like some people that are introverts, you know, they hate that, you know. For me, I absolutely love walking into a room, not knowing anybody, meeting everybody, walking around, shaking hands, making connections. Like that's fun for me. So for me, that it's not a heavy lift where it's like, hey, Cameron, you have to go to a meetup every night. I'm like, yeah, of course. I love that. Sign me up. But that is what I would say would need to do to be successful is start going to every single one of those meetups and just identifying like who are the players and who are the people that are not doing a ton of volume. And even the people that aren't doing a ton of volume, you could still buy deals from them. But, and then strategically taking those connections that you're making up at those meetups and then turning those into a one-on-one connection. So like for me, I would go to every single meetup that is going on in that city. I would identify people that I want to be connected with, and I would set up a coffee meeting or a lunch meeting with those people. And just, again, this is all exploratory. I'm being so honest with people. When I first started, I was honest, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's why I'm here. And for, you know, you see things on Instagram where it's like, never, you know, reach out to somebody unless you have value to offer. I would still offer value if I could, but part of my value that I offered, and this is going to sound a little weird, is I let the other person be the hero in the story. You know, that is the value, because people have a savior complex.
Oh yeah, I see. So you get to be the one that they get to invest knowledge and help into. And
I mean, I was going to do it. Yeah. But I love that. Like if somebody comes to me, that's my favorite thing in the world, where if somebody comes to me and they're hungry and I know that they're actually going to take action, I will spend a ton of time with them, because that brings me life. That brings me joy to see somebody like listen and then go out and crush it. That's the value that they're bringing, is like, no, you're like bringing me so much value and joy because you are listening to me and now you're going and taking action and you're crushing it. And so
I feel like that's the joy of parenting.
Yeah.
Right. If like we look at whatever moms or dads listening to this, like, you know, this is like deep psychology, but we all can see the little child and the humility and the need that we carry in other people. You know, so like, I think we all carry our own insecurities. We carry our lack of knowledge of masculinity, of like how to do certain things. And anytime someone brings that, we have this empathy towards that vulnerability in ourselves that we want. It's almost like if I help you, I'm actually sewing into that part of myself that feels insecure. And there's that part of parenting where you're like, oh, if I get to see someone that is truly humble, showing their insecurities, I want to meet them there and be a source of life to them in the midst of that vulnerability, and actually help to cherish and nurture that vulnerability. I think you know, it's kind of like, and not to get all like biblical and spiritual here, but when Jesus went up to the little kids came to Jesus, and the disciples were trying to push him away. And he's like, hey, if you hurt even the least of these, you know, it's better that a millstone is tied around your neck and that you're tossed into the ocean. It's like he had such a protection over, I don't think just the children, but like the childlikeness in all of us. Yeah. And I feel like coming into any industry, like in entrepreneurship, I've mentored a lot of people starting businesses for the first time, like hundreds, you know, that are in our programs. And I have this thing that when I see people that are so hungry and trying to get started, and they're so vulnerable and it's so scary, this thing comes out of me that I really do want to help them so much. And it's like, I come alive after those calls. Even if I didn't make any money, I'm like, I want to keep this life-giving thing that I get to do like active in my life as much as I can, because it brings me life. You know, and I think at the end of the day, it's not just about money. It's about what are the life-giving things we carry in our lives. Not to go like way too deep into all this stuff.
No, though, that is sounds stupid because the value that I brought was letting other people help me. But it is, you know, it's true. The value that I brought was that I was humble. So like in those meetings, you know, I've met with, you know, hundreds of people that are wanting to get into real estate. And there's two types of people always. There's the people that want to impress you and act like they know it all. Yeah. And then there's the people that's like, I don't know it all. That's why I'm talking to you. I would much rather meet with the people that are like, I don't know it all. Now, caveat to that, like you should still have some sort of understanding of what you're doing, not just like, tell me what ARV means, you know,
do some reading.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is some like level of doing your homework before then, but also at the same time, I wouldn't try and go, they were the experts, you know? And so those are the people that I want to sit down, I want to meet with, I want to let them share their knowledge with me. And then the other thing with that is if they told me to do something, I would do it. Like, hey, go read this book, go do this, go figure this out. Like I would call them 3 days later. Hey, read that book. It was amazing. Here's all the amazing, hey, you know, go walk X amount of houses. I would do what they told me to do. And I think that was important just to let them see like, hey, that conversation wasn't a waste of your time. Like I took a lot of the things that you told me and I took action on those things.
Well, now you're talking about character traits, right? Like I think people that are successful and people that are worthy of being invested into, they carry humility, yes, but you can be humble and not have the character trait of follow through or work ethic. Yeah. And then you're still not a great investment.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and I think it's like, okay, so what character traits? I think you're saying like having good character traits brings value to someone because now it goes, you're a good landing pad for me to actually place wisdom into. Because like if we're relating it to like gardening, you're fertile soil. And if I put my gift of different, like if I water, you know, the soil that you're planted into, it's going to grow and flourish. And I want to be a part of watching that. And that's a gift to me. But if I'm watching over here and you're like, you have no soil, the seed quality is crap, like all this different stuff. Well, I'm not going to spend my time or precious energy away from family or my business to invest in you. Yeah. And you're bringing that gift. I think that's awesome. Okay. So moving past that, you're like, I bring that gift to the table, but you're authentic.
Putting in the work,
not faking it till you make it.
Yeah, you're getting in there and you're building those relationships, right. And you know, this sounds like a lot, but truly, I think it could be done in a week. Like if you drop me into Lincoln, let's just use Lincoln as an example. I don't know that. And I do have to have some internet access, but I'm getting online and I'm finding the real estate meetups. I'm going to every single one. I'm setting up coffee meetings the next morning. By the end of the week, I could have 20 great connections and meetings where I've asked them about the market, asked them like, hey, what's the best properties to buy? Where's the areas that are the hottest? Where are up and coming areas? Where are houses selling the quickest at? Is there any contractors that you would suggest that you wouldn't suggest? Like you could do that in a week if you just buckled down and said, this entire week, I'm dedicating it to making connections.
Well, one thing I just want to highlight too is I've heard a bunch of stories too about like what you've done with in network and stuff, and hearing about how you've purchased computers and laptops for people. It's like, those 20 connections would probably feel a level of actually being seen and known by you and loyal to you, because you don't treat them as just numbers. You're going to treat those relationships, from what I've heard from you and other people as well, like there's going to be like, I feel like when people meet at networking events and stuff, they're like, how can I have advantage with this relationship? How can this relationship be transactionally beneficial for me? And I feel like that steals all the joy out of an environment and out of a relationship. And one thing that I've heard from you that's a great core value people need to have too is bringing more to the table than somebody gives to you. And I think that's also by the level of intentionality you have with loving a person. Like truly going like, I am thinking about in our conversations, how can I love you and listen to you and hear you? And if I'm hearing about needs you have, I'm paying attention to that. I may not have money right now at this level in business, but when I do, what gifts am I going to provide this person? Well, that's going to come by learning a person. Things like that, I feel like are going to probably create a level of depth in those connections too.
Yeah, for sure. And that is something that I'm naturally good at already. Where it's just, I love people and I love being around people, and I want to, provide, I think our words, we can speak life into people. And
some people suck.
Yeah. Some people suck at that. But like every conversation, I feel like I do a decent job of doing that.
Yeah.
And so then people want to be around me. And so I am developing good relationships.
Sure.
They're not transactional. I think that, in my real estate career, and even my career before real estate, like I've always been able to get invited into rooms that I shouldn't be in. And it wasn't because I'm a master networker or manipulative and working my way up the ladder. I've got my head on a swivel looking for like, who's the person that I need to go connect with. It's just because I'm likable and people want me around. I hope that's why. I think that's why. And so, And so like developing those relationships, that's easy for me to do. For some people, it's not as easy, but I still think that there's a skill set that is learned over time of like, hey, how do I love this person? How do I honor this person? How do I respect this person? How do I add value to this person's life? I think one of the way that I add value is just people like to be around me, and that adds value in and of itself, where it's like Cameron's fun to be around, well, that's why I take moments to pause and kind of ask these questions and like break it apart a little bit, because there are a lot of people that aren't as good at it. And this is like a soft skill, something that a lot of us would consider a soft skill of likability, communication, relationship. It's like you have a natural soft skill ability of relationship. A lot of people don't. So they go, how can I actually learn from this and apply that in my life if I am not naturally good at that? Well, dude, I got a great example of that. So I had a meeting, this was probably a year ago, with a guy who naturally he is an introvert. He's not the most friendly person. He's a really great guy, really nice guy. He's just not the naturally like charismatic, dap you up, bro hug, like sit down, hang out. Like he's just not that guy. And we went and we got coffee, had a great conversation. Again, it wasn't like the most like friendly, like, oh my goodness, I wanted that guy to be my best friend. And, I'm going to text him to grab a beer and watch the game later. It wasn't that conversation. Had a really good conversation. Throughout the conversation, there was one part, and it wasn't even like the main thing about the conversation, but I was talking about looking for acquisitions managers in our business, and we just kind of chatted about it and just moved on. We left the meeting. 2 hours later, he calls me and he's like, hey, Cameron, one of my good friends, he owns a recruiting company. I called him and I told him that you're looking for acquisitions managers. Just wanted to see if he had anybody that he knew of that would be a good fit. And he's like, he gave me 20 names, their email addresses, their phone numbers. I'm texting it over to you now. And immediately I'm like, that's somebody I want in my corner. It wasn't. And so he added value, immense value, without being asked. I think that was the other thing, is like, I didn't ask him to do that. It was something that in my mind during the conversation was just like something we kind of skimmed over, but he remembered that, reached out to his friend, that, like, thinking about the time that went into that, for him to make the call to his friend to make this list of names, emails, phone numbers, send it back to him, then him send it to me, like immediately, like there's so much value that was added in that.
He saved you over $100,000 right there. Cause recruiting, they usually take 80% of the first year's salary too, with like different positions that they recruit for. Yeah.
So he sent that to me. I didn't end up hiring any of them, but,
it's okay.
But yes, it was just the thought process behind that of like,
there you go.
That's somebody that I want to be in my corner. That's somebody that I want to connect with. That's somebody that I want to, like, next time I get it. Cause he was getting into real estate, was wanting some, me to send him deals, stuff like that. I'm like, the next time I get a good deal, he's going to be the first person that I text because of what he just did for me. And so just thinking through things like that, how can I add value, even if you don't have that soft skill of being really great with people? Like, everybody has an incredible skill set, whether it's with numbers, whether it's connecting, whether it's just connecting the dots like this guy did. My friend's a recruiter, Cameron's looking for somebody. I'm just going to connect all the dots here. Like, everybody has some sort of skill and value that they can bring to the world. And so, like, figuring out what is that for you, and then like leaning into that.
Fair enough.
One of my skill sets is the likability factor, the fact that I'm great with people. And so I've leaned into that. If you asked me to sit down and return emails or text messages, I would be terrible. I would never do that. I've got 10,000 unread emails and 1,500 unread text messages, that's just not, like, I'm not great at stuff like that. I'm not great with numbers. All that to say, let's get back to Lincoln, Nebraska.
It's awesome. So you have all those contacts, and now let's say you have those 20 high quality contacts. How are those turning into deals?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm still in exploratory phase because I don't even know what I'm looking for.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose of this, is what am I even looking for? Like, I don't know the best areas. I'm new to the area. So I'm relying on my own intuition and my own kind of data just from driving around and feeling areas out. And then I'm relying on these connections that I've made to help me, like, point me in the right direction. But I'm taking that, and then the next thing that I'm doing is I'm putting together, and for people that have grown up in an area, they might not need to do what I'm doing, the exploratory phase, but I'm putting together what I call a core focus. And I think that this is something that people miss all of the time. And I think it's one of the most integral parts of building a business.
Yeah.
And that is what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? The reason it's so important. So there's a guy, I was at a conference, and he asked the crowd, he said, hey, what's the hardest thing about real estate? And somebody in the crowd was like, finding deals. And he's like, yeah, that's a hard part, not the hardest part. And somebody else yelled out, finding money for deals. And he's like, yeah, that's really hard. That's not the hardest part. Somebody else yelled out, finding contractors. He's like, yeah, that's hard. That's not the hardest part. And then he stopped and he said a statement that I thought was just super profound. He said, the hardest thing about real estate is there's too many ways to make a lot of money. And I see that all of the time with new investors, where they get into the game and they start making connections, because those 20 people that I've met with, they're all probably going to be doing something different, where, they might be, it's in real estate, but somebody's doing multifamily, somebody's doing storage, somebody's doing senior living, somebody's doing sober living homes, somebody's flipping, somebody's wholesaling, somebody's using the BRRRR strategy, somebody's doing land development. So you see all of these people making great money in different avenues of real estate. And as a beginner investor, you're like, I just want to do it all. I just want to make money. So I'm going to keep my mind open. And I think that's the worst thing that you can do as a new investor, because I've seen it. When I came in, I decided, and it was a intentional decision of, I'm going to focus on single family investing, and I'm going to focus on A and B class neighborhood. And I've seen people that pretty much started when I do, and they start with single family, and then they move to storage, and then they move to multi, and then they move to land development because they heard a podcast or they saw a guru talk about how lucrative it was, and they didn't get deals. They didn't get deals. They didn't get deals. They didn't get deals. And now they're back on single family investing 3 years, and so
shiny object syndrome.
It is. And all entrepreneurs have it. And so you have to rein that in. And that's why the core focus is so important. So you've taken this exploratory phase. You've realized what are the good areas, what are the bad areas, where can I make the most money? And then you're putting together your core focus or what I would say is your buy box. So like for me, I'm buying in these certain zip codes. I'm looking for 3 or 4 bedroom houses. I want them to be ranches. I want them to be brick. We just know what we're getting into when we're buying those houses. We know what they're going to be worth when we sell them. We've got crews that are set up to turn those out really quick. So we've put together a buy box, and that is all we focus on. That doesn't mean that if something comes in that is lucrative outside of our buy box, we're not going to jump on it. But
do you feel like creating a buy box though? Because I've heard people in their buy boxes, I'm like, why did you decide that buy box? Because you like that kind of home, or because it actually makes you the most money? And you've learned it after the fact that you're like, that's because you're not choosing a buy box based on, gosh, I really like these types of homes. I'm going to get into that. Because I've heard some people like, yeah, I really like high end.
Yeah.
So that's my buy box. It's like, why? Well, I like being in high end homes and building. Okay. So is that the most important part about real estate, is what you like? Or is it like, no, let's make the most money and build a buy box around that? I guess I'm just confused about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it can be what you like. You just have to be comfortable with it might not be the most lucrative. And I'm all for people doing what they like over money. If, for instance, somebody came to me and they're like, I have no interest in doing, $60,000 rehab, cosmetic rehab. You can still take a house and make it beautiful with $60,000, $70,000. But they say, I'm an interior designer and I want to put $300,000 into a house and make it absolutely gorgeous. And that is my dream. That's my passion. I would probably tell them, well, it's going to be harder and you might not make as much money, and you're going to be a lot more worried because the more money you spend on a house, a lot of times the higher risk that you have on that house. But if that is your passion, then go for high-end luxury homes that you're going to be able to put a ton of money into, and you're going to be able to make it your own, and you're going to be passionate about it. I'm all for that. The thing is what I would say is, if that's what you want to do, commit to it and don't look back.
Sure.
Because the connections that you're making in those areas, the contractors that you're using, the real estate agents that you're connecting with, if you get into direct to seller marketing, the marketing that you're going to use, it's all going to be different from the connections that I'm making, the contractors that I'm using, the marketing that I'm using for people that are selling a house between $200,000 and $400,000.
Okay, but here's my thing. Here's my thing about this from my entrepreneurial side of things with the businesses I've been in. My thought is like, if somebody is coming to me for entrepreneurial advice and they're like, I want to be successful in entrepreneurship. Here's the kind of business I like and I want to build. A part of my advice giving, or my question asking, where I'm going to guide somebody towards, is I'm going to kind of have an understanding of like, you have to pay your dues with something you may not like before you do something you really like. Yeah. Because the goal really is to build skills. So you have to develop skills, and you have to develop capital as well before moving into some of the things you really want to do. So like, I'm doing more of the things I want to do in business now because I have the skills to choose to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the beginning, I was doing a lot of stuff I didn't want to do because I had to develop those skills. I had to be in businesses that I didn't necessarily want to be a part of. And I feel like so many people have this like head in the clouds belief, like I'm going to do exactly what I want and make all this money doing it. And I feel like sometimes you kind of, like you were just saying, not everybody gets to hear from somebody with knowledge like you that, hey, you may not make as much money and this will be more difficult. Do you still want to do it? And if they say yes, well, now they know what they're getting into, versus so many people I think are in illusion when they're doing this.
Well, and the thing that I would say is, like, to me, going from Class B property to Class A plus property, that is doable without prior experience. It's harder. Now, if I was to sit down with you and you were like, I want to go buy $150 million multifamily, then I would tell you to go pound sand. Like that's just, it's not going to happen. Like that's unrealistic.
Like, so how related to Jeff Bezos are you?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's unrealistic. Yeah. But when it comes to, if that was the case and you're like, I'm very passionate about this and I'm not passionate about single family Class B properties, I would tell you, hey, you're going to make way more money in this Class B neighborhood, flipping houses in here.
Yeah.
But if your true passion is, taking down $150 million houses or $150 million multifamilies and syndications and funds and stuff like that, you need to go just get a job with a company that's doing that. And you need to go make $50,000, $60,000 a year and work your way up the ladder.
Learn the trade.
Yes. Yeah. If that's truly what you're passionate about. And so that's the advice that I would give them is like, to me, money is,
it's not the most important.
Yeah. It's doing if you're going to do single family houses and you're going to hate it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like go work and make $60,000 and learn the skill set.
You said your passion is your family. So
yes.
You're like, making money was,
but I still love real estate.
Totally.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
I still love real estate,
but you would probably take the Class B over something that you would enjoy more, like a Class A, if it meant making money, so you could have more time with your family.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, I would personally probably rather do high-end luxury flips than do 100 Class B properties every year.
Right.
And we do a lot of Class A properties, but that would be more fun to take a house that we could completely gut on the inside, renovate it, sell for $1.5 million. But there's not a ton of buyers in St. Louis that can afford a $1.5 million house. Those are sitting on the market longer. They're taking longer to do. Your cost of capital is higher.
Yeah.
It's riskier, and the margins, to me, you can make way more money doing 100 Class B flips, making $30,000 on every one of those than do 5 high-end flips and sometimes you can make $200,000-$300,000, but a lot of times you might not make $200,000 or $300,000. You might make $50,000. And so going back to what you said is my highest priority in my life is my family. And that's what I'm most passionate about. I love spending time with them. I love hanging out with my wife. I love hanging out with my kids. If I can build a business that is less risky, it does take, doing that much volume does take a lot of systems and processes that you build, but once they're built, they're there. If I can do that, I would rather do that than be stressed out by doing, multi-million-dollar flips.
Well, I know we have like maybe 6 or 7 minutes left.
Yes.
And I want to we jumped into a bunch of details here, I know we're all over the place, but I think it's so good because this is all stuff that I'm learning. So you have these contacts, you have the plan there. Let's turn that into wholesale deals.
So you've got your buy box. Yeah, you've got your buy box now. Like you've created that, whether it is $1 million plus flips or it is, hey, I'm looking for distressed properties. I want the ARV to be between $200,000 and $400,000. I want it to look like this and be in these zip codes. Now you know what you're looking for, and that helps all of the future conversations. So you're still going to meetups. You're still making connections. You're still reaching out to agents, and you're just telling them, hey, I'm looking for houses that match your buy box, And so what I tell everybody with your buy box is create an elevator pitch out of it. Here's what I'm looking for. And then you're just using that in everyday conversation. If I saw you at a meetup and learned that you're a wholesaler, I would say, dude, I'm looking for houses in 63033, 63034, or 63385, and I need them to be between a $200,000 and $400,000 ARV. We're not doing anything on, no fire damage houses, nothing on septic. But if you have anything that matches that or close to that, I'd love to know. One of the reasons that's so important too is because if I just met you and I said, hey, I'm looking for anything that's a good deal, you would forget me. You wouldn't remember me. But if a good deal. Exactly. Yeah. Sure. So is everybody. Sure. Yes. So is everybody. But if I tell you exactly what I'm looking for, you're going to go out and, one, look for that property potentially for me. But two, if something comes across your desk that seems like I could be a good fit for it, you're going to reach out to me. Yeah. And so it's the same way in any industry. Like if I go to a Ford dealership and say, hey, I'm just looking for a car, then it's like, what does that mean? There's so many options. Are you looking for the high end, like Ford, Raptor? Or are you looking for, Ford Focus, and everything in between? So you have to have that, like, what am I looking for? Be able to communicate that clearly, still going to these meetups, making those connections, telling people that. All of a sudden now your inbox starts, your email, your text, people are starting to send you deals, which we could dive into for hours on, like, what do you do with those deals once you get them?
I guess the analysis piece is a big one.
Yeah, because now you've got deals. Now you have to learn how to analyze those deals. You have to actually be available to go walk those houses, put together a rehab budget, put together ARV, figure out exactly what that house is going to be worth once it's fixed up, craft your offer around that. But you've figured out the first stage, you have deals coming in. And there's a lot of strategies on, like, creating a wholesaler list that you're consistently reaching out to, creating an agent list that you're consistently reaching out to, telling those deals, being active on social media. I mean, Facebook, I've made well over $1 million just from Facebook posts, but being active on Facebook saying, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Cause every market has a real estate investor's Facebook page.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have multiple, like, here's what I'm looking for. If anybody has it, send it my way. And it's great for making connections too, where it's like, I sometimes post that if I find a house, that's great, but just also get people sending me deals or reaching out to send me future deals. And so, like, you're creating all of these connections, deals start coming in. Now you have to start walking those, analyzing those, making offers, closing on them. Once you do that, then it's the fun part of, are you going to, flip it? Are you going to wholesale it? Are you going to wholetail it? Or are you going to keep it as a rental property?
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we probably dug ourselves too deep here saying we would get to cover all those details in a podcast episode. Cause I think the more that I get into it, I'm like, there's so much granular stuff I'd want to unpack in this process. But it sounds like we have the next few episodes lined up now because of what you just said.
Yeah, like, once deals start coming in, first of all, I think the next step is, like, how do you create a system to keep those deals coming in continually?
Do you feel like that is enough to have, like, a full conversation about?
Yeah, for sure. Like, wholesalers, property management companies, senior living facilities, mold remediation companies, probate attorneys, real estate agents, junk removal companies, bowling alleys, like posting a sign in the bowling alley or connecting with a bowling alley owner, telling them, like, hey, you hear all of the hot gossip in town. You hear when people pass away. Anytime you hear of a house that it needs to be sold and it's distressed, like, let me know. Like, just, there's so many different ways to create deal flow.
You're like,
and
where the old people hang out.
Yeah.
Shuffleboard communities. And
yeah. And we haven't even gotten to direct to seller marketing, which would probably be another step, but we could talk about this for hours.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, I know we're, like, on time here.
Yeah.
Man, you guys listening, if you're anything like me, you're learning a lot from these conversations. And I wanted to have these conversations with Cam because I know very little about real estate, and I wanted to just get a chance to ask a lot of questions. I think with my background in entrepreneurship and for your benefit, really listening to these episodes so that you can, I guess, really come in and learn as much as possible with fresh eyes and with a fresh perspective on this. But maybe you guys can let us know in the ratings and reviews. Obviously tell us what you think about the podcast episode. That helps us greatly, just having your ratings and reviews on this too. And it helps us, if you leave comments, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, besides, listening on to Apple or Spotify. But if you guys could also in those ratings and reviews or comments, let us know, like, hey, what would be beneficial content for you? That helps us too, so we can create more. We're obviously going to try and create as much value as possible, especially with this season of the next, I think, 10 more episodes after this, to try and get you, the investor, as much value as possible. But you guys can be a part of that process with us. So if you want to be a part of that, like I said, leave us a rating or review, comment in the YouTube comments, and let us know what else would be valuable for you. And if you did find this valuable, please take time to do that. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks so much, Cam.
Love it. Thank you.
Dude.
It was a blast.
Yeah, sick. See you guys next time.
See you guys.